What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Now let's talk a little bit about some roster updates. We've talked about some of the true freshmen that are on campus, but West Virginia's also announced a lot of additions of transfers. Let me pull up these official announcements from the university. First up, Kikora Tarnu has been announced to join the program as a safety. That's one. And then we have, as well, Justin Robinson, the wide receiver transfer coming over from Mississippi State when he was at Georgia before that as well. Very highly regarded receiver, tall body, 6'4", 220 guy. It's going to play on the outside for you. He's officially on campus as well. And then we have, of course, we were talking about quarterbacks, so Ryder Burton, of course, fits right along with what we're talking about. The transfer from BYU coming in now as a redshirt freshman, being the third scholarship quarterback on this roster that is now actually at 4 scholarship quarterbacks. More on that in a moment. 6'2", 205 redshirt freshman he will be. And then, of course, also the other transfer that was announced for the Mountaineers is at the cornerback position, and that is Dontez Fagan. He was recently added. He's a redshirt senior as well. He's coming over from Charlotte. He's officially at the university. And then lastly, the other transfer signing that was announced, of course, is a tight end that's going to help the Mountaineers. Greg Genros, one of the highest rated JUCO tight ends in the country, gives West Virginia another 6'7" weapon to, go with Cole Taylor and Traylon Davis. Cole Taylor also 6'7". So 6'7", 230, Greg Genros coming over from Dodge City Community College, now on the roster. So with that being said, we have those guys coming, and we, of course, now have all of the true freshmen that are upcoming this year that didn't enroll early are now on campus. So that means it's time to pull up our roster tracker here on the CRW, and I'll highlight each of these new additions to the roster, and we'll continue to, mold this roster as we get closer into fall camp. We see, some of these guys may be playing at different spots than we have them on this initial roster, but that's what these roster updates are for, to, update position changes. And then, of course, when we get closer to the season, we can do, this into more depth chart updates. For now, they're just kind of listed in descending order in terms of their class. So, the highest, year in the class all the way down to the lowest is how I've got these listed within positions. Starting here at quarterback, I'm going to highlight the new ones that have been added. Of course, we just talked a little bit about Ryder Burton, the transfer coming over from BYU. Of course, he's there at the quarterback position now as a redshirt freshman. And you see what I'm talking about with the separation of these classes, right? You have Garrett Green is a senior, Nico Markiel's a redshirt sophomore, Ryder Burton's a redshirt freshman, and Khalil Wilkins is a freshman. So they're all separated by at least 1 year, sometimes 2. But that's good to have. You don't want those, a lot of those quarterbacks in the same classes. That's what leads to, transfer issues and such. But Khalil Wilkins, of course, highly regarded recruit. A lot of people are excited about. 6'4", 190-pound lefty from the state of Maryland. Another dual threat prospect that people are excited to see what happens with him down the line. I think he's got a high ceiling, a little bit, diamond in the rough, if you will, a hidden gem. I think West Virginia may have found at the quarterback position like they've done in the past. When you look at guys like, Garrett Green, who's your starter last year, going to be your starter this year. West Virginia, was on him from the beginning. Neil Brown and them recruiting him back at Troy and then here to WVU as well. And they think they found another good quarterback in Khalil Wilkins. And it's going to be nice to see, him, Ryder Burton, Nico kind of battle it out after Garrett and see what's going on. Because I think all 3 of those quarterbacks are really talented. But Ryder Burton and Khalil Wilkins, the new additions to the quarterback room. But then, of course, we come down here to the running back room. We know about C.J. Donaldson, Jalen Anderson, and Jaheim White, obviously. But we have 2 freshmen now going to be joining them on campus, Dior Hubbard and Trayvon Dunbar. Both of these guys, I think, have a lot of talent. Trayvon Dunbar, a little bit bigger. He's 5'10", 200 pounds, out of the state of South Carolina. And then you get Dior Hubbard, 5'11", 190, a bit shiftier back out of Ohio. Both those guys, great potential. And we know what West Virginia has done, finding running backs that have really been studs, past 2 seasons. 2 years ago, you look C.J. Donaldson bursting on the scene as a true freshman. Last year, Jaheim White does the same thing. So West Virginia has done a great job finding freshman running backs. Don't think that either one of these 2 will have to be counted upon as much, as long as, Jalen Anderson sticks around as that third running back. But we do know West Virginia will need a third running back. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, can't forget to mention, the preferred walk-ons. I will not show them on this roster. This is only scholarship players just to make it, for brevity purposes and easier to keep up with. That's kind of how I do my roster updates here. I'm sure you guys know that. I've been following along for a while now, but we also have a couple walk-ons that could get in the mix there. Clay Ash and Judah Price, who you saw in the spring game. But then come down here to wide receiver. Of course, we just mentioned Justin Robinson, one of the guys that just transferred in, coming over from Mississippi State. He was at Georgia before then. What Neil Brown loves having that, tall, big body on the outside. Justin Robinson's going to fit that mold, going to have a chance to compete, and we'll see what happens when we get into fall camp of how much he gets into that starting role, because there's going to be a lot of competition for those starting roles between, Robinson, Jaden Bray, Hudson Clement, Traylon Ray. All those guys I think are, competing on the outside there for the Mountaineers. And then, of course, we have the freshmen that have joined the roster now as well. Four of them: Brandon Raymond, Day Farmer, Dom Collins, and Keyshawn Robinson. Keyshawn Robinson, of course, in-state recruit, coming from WV, one of the top recruits in the state of West Virginia. West Virginia doing a great job locking down those in-state recruits ever since Neil Brown got here, continuing that trend with this 2024 class. Keyshawn Robinson there joining the wide receiver group. Then you get Brandon Raymond, who was a four-star prospect, according to some sites, coming over from the state of Pennsylvania. And then, of course, Dom Collins, another in-state recruit that was a big-time pickup for West Virginia down here where I'm from in Mercer County, and he has absolute blazing speed. We're talking a 4.2 something 40-yard dash that he ran when he was on campus. And we know West Virginia, I talked about needing kickoff returners. I think that he's a guy that may have a chance to compete for that spot, and that may be his route to early playing time at West Virginia, is via special teams and getting involved as a kick returner, maybe because he's very explosive at doing that in his time in high school. So hopefully he's able to continue that. And then, of course, Day Farmer is one we've got to talk about. West Virginia flips him on signing day from UCF to WVU, another absolutely speedy guy, 5'11", 170, from the state of Florida. West Virginia's had great success with those players out of Florida. West Virginia steals them, from UCF's backyard, comes to Morgantown, has now enrolled, and already, throughout summer workouts, you've heard the coaching staff kind of raving about him a little bit. So I think if one of these freshmen is going to get involved in the receiver rotation this year, look no further than Day Farmer. He's the guy you'll probably see do that. He's highly regarded, and I think he has a chance to get on the field right away, despite West Virginia having, a pretty stacked room here, or a pretty deep room, I guess you could say. I think Day Farmer has a chance. And then we move on to tight end. We talked a little bit about Greg Ross coming over from Dodge City Community College. Hopefully he gets a chance to get involved this year. We'll see how quickly he acclimates. But either way, this is going to be Cole Taylor's last season with the Mountaineers. So even if it takes him, kind of a year to have an adjustment period, next year you're going to have a 6'7" tight end able to step right into the shoes that Cole Taylor had these past 2 seasons and continue that role. So I think he has a chance, though, to get on the field this season as, West Virginia's kind of second pass-catching tight end. We know Traylon Davis is going to be on the field a lot, but he's more used in kind of blocking aspects, where Cole Taylor's the more pass-catching option. They're looking to add a second pass-catching option. I think Greg Ross is going to be an option there, but don't sleep on Will Dixon either. They really like him a lot. And then, of course, Jackson Marco is on, but he was on campus for the spring, so he's already been around. Then we go down here to the offensive line. I have Lucas Austin currently listed at left tackle. I believe he's going to play tackle for the Mountaineers. They added a couple guys that may play tackle, but true freshman Lucas Austin has joined the roster now as well. 6'7", 270-pounder, so great height coming in. Got to put on a little bit of weight, obviously, out of the state of Illinois, but he's, a future offensive lineman prospect for the Mountaineers. We'll move on down, no changes at left guard. And then at center, here's where we get into Kyle Altuner. And you've heard me rave about this guy. You've heard my friend Mountaineer Paul rave about this guy. I think that West Virginia is not going to need to count on any true freshman this year to really contribute. But if someone does break through there and have a chance to get into that too deep, it's Kyle Altuner. Because I think that he's West Virginia's center of the future, in my opinion. 6'3", 290 pounds, out of the state of Maryland. And I think he's going to probably battle Landon Livingston for that second string spot right away. In my personal opinion, he's going to have a chance to get on that too deep. And I think maybe as early as 2025, he could be the West Virginia center of the future. We'll see what happens. But they really do like Kyle Altuner, and so do I. No changes at right guard. And then at right tackle, we've added Justin Terry, another true freshman tackle that joins the roster. A little bit better on the weight size. Him and Lucas Austin have similar height. He's 6'6". Lucas Austin, we just talked about, 6'7". But Justin Terry already over 300 pounds out of the state of Ohio, joining this roster for the Mountaineers. Now we flip it over, and we're going to talk a little about the defense and some of the new bodies that have been added to the defensive side since the end of spring football practice. No changes on the defensive end position. All of these guys were here for the spring. Same goes for defensive tackle, as Elijah Kinsler was an early enrollee here for the spring. Nate Gabriel, same thing. He was here for the spring as well. So then we get down here to the spur position, formerly known as the bandit position. Of course, Tyron Bradley and Ty French are going to kind of be your go-to guys there. Abinan Wuka was here for the spring. He was a 4-star recruit that West Virginia added and enrolled early. But now we've added Mekhi Byerson. I've got him listed here with the Spurs. I think he's got a chance to either be a defensive end or a spur. I like him as a spur initially, just coming in before he can get more weight on. Let's see if he ends up there or not. But 6'5", great height, 230 pounds, out of the state of Virginia. So yet again, we talk about those borderline states, and Mekhi Byerson from one of those. He's an edge rusher. We'll see if he ends up as a spur or as a defensive end. For now, we've got him listed as a spur on our roster, and we'll change that accordingly as we move forward. Then we get into the linebackers here. West Virginia did add a couple of freshmen. Curtis Jones Jr., another in-state recruit, one of the top ones in the state of West Virginia in the class of 2024. The Mountaineers land him, 6'2", 210 pounds. And then Ricky Williams, no relation, and no, not that Ricky Williams, but a highly regarded prospect with kind of prototypical size at the linebacker position. You don't see West Virginia bring in many linebackers that weigh 230 pounds as freshmen, and he's 6'2", out of the state of Ohio. So I think, with that size, he's going to be able to carve a path to playing time sooner rather than later. I don't think that'll be this year. You see West Virginia with a pretty deep group. They brought in, Reed Carrico. We got Trotter coming in now finally. Last year, he probably would have been a starter. So I think West Virginia's linebacking core is probably severely underrated right now. I think that they have a lot of talent there at the linebacker position, and they've added those two freshmen there. Then, of course, Spear, no changes. Zay Jennings was there on campus already, as a freshman, enrolled early, was here for spring practice, and they really like him. Zay Jennings is going to play this fall, guys. You're going to see him get on the field some. I think it's going to happen. But now down to cornerback, where we do have the new additions. Dantes Fagan, we just talked about a little bit, transferring in from Charlotte. Going to be a redshirt senior there. He's going to compete at this cornerback spot. West Virginia has a ton of bodies here, and they're going to let them all kind of battle it out to form the best two deep that they can. But the positive side of that is West Virginia is never going to be in the position that they were last year, where they just kind of had to count on their starters and kind of have them be Iron Man and play a ton of snaps. Now West Virginia has plenty of bodies this year that they're going to have a solid two deep, and they're going to be able to rotate some of these cornerbacks as well, I believe, especially once Spells and Crandall come back from their injuries. That's really going to help. But Dantes Fagan is the transfer that joins here. And then you got two freshmen here. Keon Washington, who is coming in, I think, to play the cornerback position for sure, if I'm not mistaken. 6 foot, 175-pounder out of the state of Maryland. And then you got Chris Henry, who was recruited as an athlete. I don't know if he's going to be a receiver or a defensive back necessarily yet. We'll see once we get in the fall camp. He may switch over. We may have him at receiver. No, it's not Chris Henry's son. It's no relation, just the same name. But he's out of the state of Florida, 6 foot, 185-pounder. We'll see where he ends up for now. I've got him listed as a corner. He could play receiver, though. Then a free safety, no changes here. Israel Jacob Boyce was on campus as an early enrollee as a freshman. And I do want to mention, of course, I talked about some of these positions will change when we do future roster updates, and I think that's really true for the safety spot because a lot of these guys are being cross-trained. Aubrey Burks can play all three positions. Jaheim Joseph can probably play free and spear, maybe even some cat. And then when you get down here to the cat safety position, of course, Anthony Wilson's there. I've got Jason Cross here. Who knows? He may end up at free safety, but that's another true freshman that's joined the mix is Jason Cross, another recruit from this 2024 class. This one's out of the state of Pennsylvania, 6'2", 170-pounder that joins the roster. And then we have Kakura Tarnu. This one is really interesting to me because I didn't know that he was coming to play safety. He kind of played cornerback exclusively at Jacksonville State. But he's a guy that's kind of newer to football, but has really came on strong, very highly rated by PFF grades and everything else. I think it's an interesting move, West Virginia using him as a safety, but kind of smart. But with all the defensive back bodies that we were talking about with the cornerbacks, he may have been stuck in the mix there. But here at safety, he's got a chance to compete with Anthony Wilson here, or even compete with Jaheim Joseph at the free safety spot, and has a chance to be on the two deep, whether it's at cat or free. I think you're going to see Kakura Tarnu as a potential starter, maybe even on this defense. Once we get into fall camp, he's got really good potential. So, don't sleep on Tarnu as well at the safety position. No changes at kicker, punter, or long snapper. So there's a look at the roster. I'll kind of slowly scroll back through it so you can get some more looks at it if you want to there. But we've added, all of the true freshmen. We've added all of the transfers in as well. I think that West Virginia does a great job, securing defensive back bodies. That's something that we needed. That was the need for West Virginia. They have a ton now. We just have to hope that they all mesh well with so many new faces there involved in the secondary. Hopefully, it all works out team chemistry-wise. If it does, I think there's plenty of talent there for West Virginia's secondary to be greatly improved. I'm not expecting the defensive line or linebackers to take a step back. I talked about the linebackers being probably the most unheralded unit on this team. They have a ton of talent there. People are going to be really impressed with the linebackers. So I think West Virginia's defense has a chance to take a step forward this year. And if they do, this team's going to be very scary because we know the offense is going to be there, particularly the run game. You got to develop the passing game a little bit more, but I think that's going to come with Some of these receivers now getting more experience, plus adding some experienced bodies in Jaden Bray and Justin Robinson. But I think that we're set for a very exciting 2024 season. And as we get into fall camp, I'll continue to track this roster and any changes. I'll put up future roster update videos and always date those so you can kind of keep track with those. But there'll also be a playlist on the channel titled 2024 roster updates if you need to check that out. But having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.